Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks in a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business at paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.
Better get the coleslaw, y'all, because we're having us a barbecue.
Before I started SJS Direct, I learned a lot about management in the jobs that I had. And in those jobs that I had, I learned a lot about managing a business from the mistakes I saw the bosses I was being supervised make as related to myself and my other coworkers on the job. And as I saw them making these mistakes, I made a vow to not treat people the way that I saw myself and others being treated on the job, and I made a commitment to myself to look to be the kind of leader who would go out here and try to show an example of professionalism to my staff or the freelancers that I currently work with. So when I go out here as related to SJS Direct Business, I take the lessons that I learned from the jobs that I had and I try to apply them every day to the business as related to communicating with freelancers and even many of my viewers who are customers of my products. Now, my first job that I had was way back in 1996, working at the Food Emporium supermarket on 87th Street and Madison Avenue. Now, when I went to work at this market, one of the mistakes I saw the manager basically make with me was being really hesitant to bring me in on the job. Now, I had been hired for the job and I was just waiting for my start date, and they basically again took their time as related to things, and that's a red flag for me because again, when you're at a job, you want to not go out here and hesitate as related to bringing in a new worker. No, when you bring in a new worker, you want to give them an assured start date and you want to give them a schedule right up front. That really shows that you're taking the lead as related to the business in letting the employee know that they're going to be a part of the business. Moreover, this allows you to start establishing structure for that worker when they come into the business so that they know their role in the business. And that was the other issue I had working at Food Emporium. Originally, I was hired there to be a cashier, but on day one when I came into the business, they basically gave me a different job working and doing stock. And later on, after doing stock for about 2 months, they then had me bagging groceries. Again, no real direction as related to being a leader because, again, leaders go out here and establish clear roles for their staff from minute one. And the one thing you want to do in your business when you hire a new employee is go out here, and if you are offering them a job, and you offer them a specific job from minute one, you don't change to another job when that person starts working for you, because that basically starts eroding the trust between you and your coworkers. And the last thing you want to do is start eroding trust between yourself and your coworkers, because that's going to destroy the relationship that you have as a manager. Because if people can't trust you as related to things, that makes it where people, again, start to lose respect for you as a leader and start losing respect for your authority as a manager. Now, as I worked at the Food Emporium, it was a very difficult job because you're coming in, you're trained for one job, and then you're coming into another that you know next to nothing about. And as I came into these other jobs, again, trying to do stock, and I was trying to get the hang of stock, and then you get moved over to front end with the whole bagging groceries. Again, this is very frustrating for an employee to deal with, and even more frustrating is that some days they would have me going outside to wash the tiles of the front end. Again, not really setting a direction for where you want to take an employee. And not when you don't set a direction for your employees, it basically shows that you really don't care about them or care what direction you want them to go in your business. Now, a while as I was working at this job, about 6 months into it, eventually they did let me start training to be the cashier after several staffers left. And again, that's not a good look for your business. You hired somebody to do a job, and then when you don't give them that job, again, you then want to start training them 6 months in. Not good leadership whatsoever. And I found out, sadly, from the front end manager that the manager who hired me didn't want me to be a cashier because he said that people would take advantage of me. And again, that's demoralizing for an employee who's a new hire. Again, demoralizing because what you're doing is saying that you don't have confidence in this person's abilities. You don't have confidence in this person's ability to do the job you hired them for. And that lack of confidence, again, is something that totally destroys an employee's trust and makes it where that employee feels like they have no future at that business. And as someone is demoralized like that, what happens is that the person doesn't really feel like they are a part of the business anymore. Now, I liked working at Food Emporium. I didn't mind working in a supermarket doing a job. But the thing that frustrated me was the fact that people were not honest and upfront. That was the thing that frustrated me because if you are a boss, the first thing you want to do is be upfront with your employees, letting them clearly know their roles in the job and clearly let them know what you want them to do so they can go out here and effectively do their work for you. And the other thing you don't want to do is go out here and again doubt your employees because that really says that you're not confident as a leader. And again, one of the lessons I learned from working at Food Emporium as related to a job is one, to be honest with the people that I work at and work with from minute one. And if I'm a boss and I'm hiring someone, like I hire an artist, I have to believe in that person. I have to believe in their abilities if I go out here and hire them. And whenever I do hire someone like an artist to do a cover, it's because I believe in that artist. I believe in their ability, and I believe that they can do the job to the best of their ability based on what I saw in their samples. That's the reason why I go out here, and when I are contacting artists, again, I come to them with all of my confidence in trusting their ability because I remember when I worked at Food Emporium, basically this guy didn't believe in my abilities, and again, that basically made it where he went out here and again kept this to himself. And you don't do that to your employees. It's better that you not hire someone than hire someone that you're having doubts about, because if you don't have faith in that person, again, it basically makes it where you wind up losing their trust, and eventually that person winds up leaving the company because they basically have no future at that company because you feel that you don't really trust them to do their job. And another lesson I learned from working at Food Emporium was to learn to, again, not to say people will take advantage of someone. No, in that whole case, this is an opportunity for me to show an example of leadership because a lot of people come into fields and they are extremely green. And as they're coming into that field, yeah, they might be taken advantage of by someone who basically is unscrupulous. But as a man of character, what I want to do is get that person up on game. And as I get them up on game and on the same page, it really shows an example of me as a leader, an example of me as a leader to everyone to show that I'm not going to, again, have this guy out here, again, not knowing anything. Because when you're running a business, the one thing you want to do is, again, if you have green employees who are inexperienced, is take the time to get them up on game, because people will respect you for that. They will respect you if you take that 4 or 5 minutes to let them know how things go and how things go as related to the business and business in life. People will respect you because you're taking the lead, because nobody's going to come in a business basically knowing everything about business. No, everybody comes into businesses. There's a learning curve. There's a learning curve, and again, anyone can get taken advantage of if they are out here and they don't know what the game is. And a leader is going to take the time to get everybody on the same page and to have the patience and understanding of getting everyone on the same page. Because one of the worst things you can do, again, is hire someone you don't have confidence in and you don't trust their ability. That's, again, very frustrating to deal with, and it basically demoralizes people to the point where it basically drives them out the door, like it did with me with Food Emporium. By May of 1997, I basically walked away from this job because it was just, again, demoralizing to come into a job that you were hired for and basically being told by your own boss that they don't believe in you. I mean, that's, again, demoralizing for an employee overall. And it's very, again, it can just make a person want to just give up as related to a job. Again, when you hire someone, you trust their abilities and you lead those people. That's the thing that I learned from Food Emporium. I have to lead people as a boss. I have to show an example to people. And a lot of people are going to come into a business as related to things being green. I mean, when I hire artists, they don't know anything about ISIS. They don't know anything about John Haynes. They don't know anything about Esteem. I mean, the books are basically on Amazon, and I cannot assume that they've read them or looked at the covers. No, I have to come in and show them what this character is about. If I want to get a great cover from them, I have to show them and specifically what I want as related to a cover or interior art. I have to show them an example. I have to, again, get them on the same page that I'm on. That's what leaders do, and that was the hard lessons that I learned from working at Food Emporium. Now, the second job that I had was working for AmeriCorps Vista at Strive, and as I worked at AmeriCorps Vista at Strive from the year 2000 to 2001, I learned a lot of lessons there about leadership from the mistakes managers made there. And one of the biggest mistakes that the managers made there was not paying employees 1 week for them not being able to meet their overall goals in an effort to so-called teach a lesson to the employees. And that really wound up destroying the morale of everyone at Strive. And it was one of those lessons that I learned at Strive that basically hit harder than the lessons in the job readiness workshop, because when you go out here and again look to punish your employees for a mistake that they possibly did not make, because when I looked at the overall big picture of what was causing the problems that's related to not meeting Strive's goals, what it was that the turnover was the reason why they were not meeting their goals. And when you run a company and you have frequent turnover, it becomes very difficult to meet goals, becomes extremely difficult to meet goals, because you're constantly bringing new people in and you're basically trying to get those people up to speed. And usually it takes anywhere from 6 months to a year for a person to be brought up to speed. And in that time, basically, you're losing momentum. You're losing momentum as related to your business, and sadly, the folks at Strive couldn't connect those dots as related to why they weren't meeting their goals, as related to placements and other things. You're not meeting your goals because you're constantly bringing in new people to replace old people. And when you have high turnover, you're not going to be able to meet your goals because everyone isn't on the same page. Unfortunately, they had a new guy from an Ivy League school as their executive vice president, and this guy really didn't know anything about business because he was a labor lawyer, but he wasn't understanding how business works. Now, I am a guy, again, who studied business administration. I understood how business worked because the class, organizational behavior, I took taught me all about the impact of turnover, and the impact of turnover on a business when it's frequent keeps a business from being able to grow. A business can't really grow as a business when you have high turnover, when you have people walking out the door. Basically, you are losing momentum, work's not getting done, and it's being done by multiple people, and nobody is, again, being able to maintain a level of consistency. And this is something that many of the bosses at Strive weren't really thinking about, and they had key positions, again, not filled. And I was trying to help them get positions filled because I had a family member who was working as a job developer. We tried to bring in some people to help them with issues because people were leaving the company after they had their morale basically broken, and tried to help them and thought I would have a future at Strive and looked to meet with the vice president to talk about that future at Strive, but basically got the biggest slap in the face when this guy basically brought me to a Mexican restaurant to tell me to my face there was no place for me in his organization. And that basically taught me another lesson about leadership, that, again, you just don't disrespect your workers. No, you don't disrespect your workers. If somebody's doing great work for you, you keep that person on, and you keep that person on because you want results. But this guy didn't want results. What he wanted to do was create a fiefdom of black elites who would be a part of this nonprofit and have them be under him and have his name on everything. And ironically, a year later, what happened to this same guy was his name was on everything as they continued to have issues with their business, and basically all those issues led to him leaving his position and eventually, again, leaving the organization. All because he didn't understand, again, a leader's job is to go out here and, again, take an assessment of the business, as related to its overall mission and its overall goals, and also take a look at factors as related to things. Now, Strive had sent me 2 annual reports before I even came to work, and when I looked at the names constantly changing on the employee roster, I already knew that there was a bit of a problem, because any company where usually you have strong growth, usually the employees don't change, because if a company is growing, usually if there are people, they're going to look to advance in that company. They're not going to look to get other opportunities at other companies unless there are things that are issues, like a company having, again, salaries that are not competitive, or a work environment where the work is overwhelming. Usually those are the reasons why people wind up leaving a position. And what happened at Strive is that, again, they didn't, again, value their talent, and they didn't understand how to manage talent. That was another thing that I learned. Again, you got to learn how to respect your talent. You've got to learn how to manage your talent, and you've got to appreciate your talent and express gratitude towards your workers. Again, this is all part of being a professional. Again, a lot of folks don't understand these things. They don't really understand that when you have employees, you have to treat them right. And you can't go out here and do things that show how disrespectful you are. Like I remember bringing some people from different homeless organizations into Strive so they could see the program, and the executives there basically blew me and those people off, never seeing how they created a negative first impression. Here you have outsiders again looking at your organization, and because they're coming in from an AmeriCorps worker, you thinking they're less than important. But any smart executive would say, hey, I'm going to take 2 seconds to, again, meet these people because they're going to be bringing participants into my program. And if I can't take 5 seconds to talk to these people, it really says something about us that really is detrimental to the business. Again, this is not good leadership all around. And that lesson that I learned is, again, then I take the 2 seconds to go meet people, even if they come from low level folks. I mean, I've had Facebook friends refer artists to me, and I would, again, there was one guy, tried to give him a shot, but his PayPal was all messed up and he didn't have his stuff together. And that was the only reason why I wound up not working with him. But I was willing to give that guy, again, a minute. And again, good leaders will sit there and try to give you a minute as related to things. And again, they understand that this is about me making a professional first impression that's respectable to others, that shows that you're going to respect others. Now, years later, Strive basically had a major scandal where the CEO basically called an employee the N-word, and eventually this got into the news and led to a federal lawsuit because, again, they didn't know how to manage a situation, but I knew how to manage that situation as related to someone dressing inappropriately. Again, the way you deal with this is not to get in the person's face and argue with them the way CEO did. No, the way I would do it is basically I'm going to call you in the office with a female employee present and a camera rolling from a cell phone or some other device, and I'm going to tell you that you're dressed inappropriately as related to our dress code. I'm going to, again, create written records that say that I did talk to you about this. We're going to have a paper trail as related to this whole situation where we have a date that I talked to you, we had a time that I talked to you, we have this recorded on video, and there will be no emotional histrionics. There will just be a record of this discussion, and that's how you deal with this person. And if they continue to be belligerent and insubordinate, that's where you can then escalate things to either further discipline this person with a suspension or a termination. That's the way you handle a situation with an employee who's dressed inappropriately. You basically, again, take them to the side, let them know what they have done, create written records to let them know that they have done, create video evidence to let them know that you are being recorded, and that evidence and paper trail create accountability. And again, when you are dealing with an employee, you don't get emotional with them. A lot of people, they would be like, oh, you're being monotone and being serious. But the whole thing is that you want to maintain a level of professionalism as related to your job. And that's what I didn't see with that whole situation. But I talked about that in a video a long time ago about how to deal with women like this on the job when they act out like this. You, again, like I said before, record it, document it, and that's how you defend yourself. Not like what I saw with the CEO of Strive, who again thought he could go out here and talk about the N-word and trying to make positive spin, and the whole thing turned into a disaster that basically led to his ignominious end from Strive overall. Now, the third job that I had was a job at a law firm that my family member tried to get me. Unfortunately, there were issues that I saw at the interview that I basically knew were red flags, and in the interview that I had where I saw the red flags was one of the big red flags I saw was that, one, the guys were not engaged with me at the law firm. The second one that I saw was during the interview, they were talking about hiring someone else. And when someone talks about hiring someone else when they're interviewing you, basically that means you're not going to get the job. And it also means that these people have absolutely no respect for you because it's very disrespectful to go out here and talk about hiring someone else for the job you are applying for. It's extremely disrespectful to talk about hiring another person into the position you're hiring for. And it's disrespectful because, again, this person took the time to come down to talk to you about this position. And for you to do that basically shows no regard for the person who took their time to come down to see you and take the time to present themselves to you. Just it's disrespectful all around because this same guy, I guarantee you, if he did this on a date with a woman, he would be upset if that woman got up and left because a lot of guys don't see how when you're in an interview, again, you're at your best. You're supposed to be putting on your best face because you're representing your business to the whole world, and the word of mouth of candidates is just as good as the word of mouth from clients. So you don't want to go out here and be saying stuff that basically alienates a candidate because people will look at you and look at the way you're presenting yourself and see it as you not being able to understand what professionalism is. Now, as I was in this interview and they're sitting there talking about hiring another person, I was basically sitting there thinking about charging it to the game and moving on. Unfortunately, I had pressures from my family, and they basically called me up about 2 months later in November because I think I interviewed it really was in August, and then they called me in later of November, and again, that's not a good sign for a business when you're calling somebody 2 3 months later. I mean, usually when people do interviews, usually an employer is going to go out here and make their response almost immediately to make you an offer. It's just like going out and asking a girl out on a date. I mean, usually if a woman is interested, she's going to say yes almost immediately. And if she's out here and she's waiting to contact you by the later time, like later in the week, it basically means that she's not really interested, but is just going to go through the motions. And the last thing you want to deal with is an employer who basically, again, doesn't see you as a priority. The last thing you want to deal with is an employer who doesn't see you as a priority because waiting 2 to 3 months to contact someone, again, that's just as disrespectful as a guy asking you out on a Saturday and then you basically waiting until the next Friday to contact them through a text message, because these guys contacted me through my email in November, and as they contacted me in November, basically I went out here looking to take this offer because I needed a job, and the job that they offered me wasn't the job that I basically came there for. No, it was another job as a receptionist. And as I came in there to do this job as a receptionist, because I thought I could, learn this job, I came into a work environment where basically nobody wanted to take the lead in looking to teach me anything at this job. And as I was trying to do this job to the best of my ability, what happened was I was trying to answer these phones, and basically this guy, it wasn't good enough for him. And it wasn't good enough for his clients. Really what it was many of his clients saw a heterosexual black man sitting at the front desk, because a receptionist is the face that the company sees. And for many of these white males and white females, basically if they see a black man at the front desk, it makes them uncomfortable. Because seeing a black man in a position of power makes many of these whites and non-blacks extremely uncomfortable, because that black person has the power to dictate what they do in that business. Now, they don't mind seeing a black person as a security guard because in their racist minds, they see security as having no real power. Yeah, security may have a badge and even a nightstick or a gun, but they have no real authority whatsoever. But a receptionist has authority and, again, is in an optical place where they are the face of a company. And as the face of a company, it basically sends a message to many of these white racists that, oh, these people see black people as human beings. And that's what got this guy really flustered as related to his business and made him flustered, again, as related to things because they don't mind a black woman being the face of their receptionist. They don't mind a Hispanic woman being that face, but a black man being that face makes many of these whites and non-blacks extremely uncomfortable. And as I was trying to learn this job, again, had a lot of clients talking about how I was being hostile when I'm talking to you the same way I'm talking to you right now, but this was considered to be hostile. And I'm trying to, again, trying to talk to people and trying to get this phone to work. And this phone itself basically wasn't working right. And again, this guy was getting upset. And again, what was really making dude upset was the fact that, again, a black man was in a position of power, and him having a black man as a position of power in his business, this was the thing that made him uneasy, and basically I wound up, this was the first job I was let go from, again, only after 2 weeks, and again, it was one of those jobs that basically taught me a lot of hard lessons about racism, the subtle racism that nobody wants to talk about regarding heterosexual black men in jobs, because when it comes to heterosexual black men in jobs, again, many of these whites and non-blacks don't like the idea of black men in their offices. They don't like the idea of black men in their offices. One, because they're afraid that it's going to lead to white women lusting after them, even though I have no interest in white women. I believe that they're, again, basically average at best and sometimes even corny. And the other thing that I learned as related to how not to treat people is to not go out here and hire someone, again, and not have, again, faith in them. Again, if you're interested in hiring someone, you're going to make your offer very early. No, you're not going to wait 2-3 months. That was another lesson I learned. Again, like dating, people are just going to come out here and make their offer almost immediately if they see a qualified person. Usually, again, the most people will take is about maybe a week in order to find an employee. They're not going to drag their feet as related to an employee and bringing them on to the team. The other thing that I learned is, again, people will try to make you feel welcome. One of the things that I ran into at that law firm, I was never made to feel welcome or feel like a part of the organization from minute one. Just did not made to feel that way. Nobody trying to talk to me or tell me how things go. Again, that's a sign of bad leadership, because if this is your company and every employee needs to feel like they are welcome at any time in a company, and when people don't feel welcome, what happens is that they don't feel like they're a part of the company. They don't feel connected to the company, and what happens is that this affects an employee's ability to perform, employee's ability to perform, and this really affected me greatly. I mean, I was just really devastated when I lost this job, and was really devastated to the point where it basically affected me to the point where I didn't even want to speak anymore, because I thought, there was something wrong with my voice, because people used to mock me and make fun of my voice as a kid. And then as I got older, it just got worse. And again, losing this job because this person had an issue with the way I'm speaking to them, it just made it where I just couldn't talk for several years. And eventually, again, later on, I got a family member who sent me information about another job with CUNY Civil Service, and I took the test for that job in about 2007. Wound up failing the first test, took the test again in 2008, basically working on $60 a month a family member was giving me because I couldn't find a job, because basically wanted to work, but again, many employers just wouldn't give me a break. And after a couple of years, basically eventually got this job with CUNY Civil Service at the City College of New York at their science library. And again, red flags started to come out to me because we set up a start date in February, but then I get a call the next day that the job is going to start in April. Red flag number one. Again, I just didn't understand that, again, if an employer really wants you, they're going to want you to start immediately because they want you to learn the business and want you to learn the business as related to things so that you can get up to speed. That's what good leaders want to do. And as I came to City College in around April, basically ran into another situation where I saw what happens when you have a beta male leader in charge. And when it comes to beta male leaders, again, they don't really lead. And what they do is abdicate leadership. And that's what this head librarian did. Abdicated leadership to this black woman who I basically saw as a mammy. Again, abdicated and said she's going to be your supervisor, and that was a red flag to me as related to things because, again, when you're a manager, you want to take responsibility for your employees, you want to take responsibility for your team, and good leaders don't go out here and give people pseudo management roles. No, they don't do that because if I hire someone to be a manager, I'm going to pay them what a manager is worth. I'm going to pay them for the job that I'm having them do and not look to give them pseudo titles. That was one lesson I learned from working at that science library as related to being a leader. Being a leader means that you have clear roles for your people, and it means that you take the lead as related to all of the employees on your team. And I also learned as related to things when a beta male is in charge, again, not only do they abdicate their position as leader, but they also go out here and look to hide from people. And as they look to hide from people, they don't really deal with the problems that are going on with the business. No, as they sit and hide in their offices, they don't deal with the problems of the business and they pile up. And that's what happened at that science library. Problems were piling up as related to that library. And again, when you are a good leader, you want to be out on the front and or even at the minimum have your door open. But this guy didn't want to have his door open, didn't want to deal with the business. And again, if you're in a business, the last thing you want to do is have a closed door because having a closed door means you're not looking to be concerned about the business. And if you're in management, the one reason why you're in business is because you're there to solve problems. You're there to deal with conflict. Conflict is a part of being in a business. Conflict is a part of being a manager or a leader at a job. And good managers, from I've seen, basically are on the floor with their workers. They're at the front with their people, and they're working with their people and basically teaching them and giving them guidance. They're not sitting in the back hiding from their workers or having somebody parrot instructions. Now, there was a issue one time where I was coming in, again, my regular time and opening up the library, but this guy wants to go out here and say, oh, the library's not open at the time it's supposed to open. And he didn't. I came in just at the same time that he came in, and he could have talked to me directly, but no, he decides to talk through this mammy. And again, that's not good leadership. Good leaders come up front and talk to people directly. They talk to their people directly and let them know what they want. You don't hide behind people because that's weak leadership. Weak leaders basically go out here and hide behind people and say, hey, I'll make this person the supervisor, but I'm not going to take the lead in an organization. No, that's not how you do business. That's not how you do things. No, if you are here and you have an issue with someone, you go deal with that person face to face. That's what a leader does. And sadly, this guy didn't do this. No, didn't do this at all. And while there are problems piling up in this library, doesn't want to deal with anything whatsoever, doesn't want anything to be dealt with. And sadly, this mammy basically couldn't see how she was being taken advantage of by this guy, again, as related to things, because there was also an issue with funding of this library. Now, at that time in 2008, what they wanted to do was extend the hours of this library without ever extending the funding of this library. And they wanted people to work until 11 o'clock and do overtime once the budget ran out. And her response was just to sit there and take it, whereas I looked at it and said, no, this is not very smart. I mean, when it comes to, again, you are supposed to have your stuff together if you're going to do an expansion. If you're going to, because the other libraries were saying, look, our hours are, again, 8:30 to 5, and once we close at 4:45, it's basically over. But this guy, again, had no backbone or no stones to say, hey, if you want, again, extra hours, you're going to have to pay extra money. But the sad part, again, is that this woman basically, again, went along to get along because her head was gassed up about being a so-called supervisor who was not going to be paid anything more as related to her job. She was just caught up in having this power, not understanding how she was being played, because the whole thing is somebody gives you a manager title, but they don't give you the manager salary. That's a disrespect in and of itself. And I didn't know that they were having funding issues until about September. Now, we going from April, May, June, July, August, all the way to September. And I did a couple of overtimes on Fridays when the library would close at 6 o'clock. But the whole thing is that, again, I didn't know that they were having these issues. And that's another sign of weak leadership in people not being upfront. Again, when you are the boss or the owner, your job is to be upfront with your employees. That was a lesson that I learned from working at City College. One big one that I try to apply is to be transparent and upfront, because when you're transparent and upfront, people can respect you and make a decision or an assessment based on what they are told. They can make an honest assessment of things. But when a manager hides information from you because they're afraid of conflict, or even worse, afraid of losing talent, basically what that does is accelerate talent being leaving, because people become frustrated. People become frustrated as they're working at a job where they, again, have to deal with a boss who they can't trust because they're keeping information away from them. I mean, it's very frustrating when you're trying to do a job and a boss isn't telling you what the deal is as related to things. I mean, this is the thing that frustrates people when you have a boss who won't tell you that we are having issues and somebody has to stay on for overtime, or somebody has to work extra hours because somebody else, again, is afraid to talk. And again, if you're the boss of the business, everything falls on you. And as everything falls on you, you have to be accountable. You have to be accountable for everything. And if I'm accountable for everything, then I'm going to be upfront with my employees and let them know what the deal is. And I let them know what the deal is because that's a sign of respect. I mean, I need to let you know what this is. Okay, we have an overtime issue, and the overtime issue is due to a lack of funding. And if you choose to do the overtime, then you would, again, have to do this. But the whole thing is, for you to spring this on someone, again, shows that you're a coward, one. Two, shows you have no respect for your workers. And on top of that, as I'm hearing this during a performance evaluation, that's where this guy again then tells me that he's again looking for someone with a sales and customer service background. Now, he knew I was a writer, and writers, we do sales, because right now I do sales whenever I'm promoting books on Amazon, but you don't say things like that to your workers. You don't demoralize them. I mean, it would be disrespectful for me to go to one of my artists who does a cartoon style and tell him I'm looking for a style like George Perez. That would be disrespectful to them because I'm hiring them because I want a cartoon style. I'm hiring them based on the merits of what I've seen with their portfolio. That's a manner of, again, professionalism. I mean, that was a lesson that I learned about working at City College, again, about how to treat people, how to treat your people. One of the things I learned that's most important is to, again, be very transparent with your people, and people will respect you for being transparent with them. And the other thing that I learned is to not hide things from people. And the third thing that I learned is not to hide from my people. I mean, one of the things that I learned from working at City College is not to sit in an office and hide from people. No, what I want to do is if I did work at an office or any retail, it would be on the floor, with my people, and be on the floor with my people so I can go out here and see the work environment and see how things are going. I mean, yeah, you got work that you got to do in the office, but I want to have my door open. I want to hear what's going on out here. I want to step out and again be there for my people, and I also want my people when they are come to be able to have that door open so that if there's a problem, yeah, you can come to me and talk to me. I mean, I want that door open so that we can communicate. Those are the things that I want to do when I'm running SJS Direct, or if I was even a manager at a company. You want to have good communication, because if you sit there and hide things and lie to your workers, you're going to erode their trust. And if you talking about a person needing someone in another position, again, this is also disrespectful. I mean, if I've got a top artist working for me and I start talking about how I'm looking for somebody with a different style, that's disrespectful to that artist. I mean, that's disrespectful to them, because I'm saying basically to that person, I'm looking for somebody else, and the last thing you want to do is say something like that. No, it's like going on a date and talking about an ex or talking about some other woman. Basically, if you go out here talking about your ex or some other woman, what you're doing is disrespecting that woman who is sitting there with you. I mean, this dude possibly never thought about it like this. Hey, I got my wife with me and I'm going to start talking about some other woman. Basically, that woman's going to see herself on a road to divorce court because she's seeing you talk about some other woman. Or in some cases, what she's going to do is say, you can go out here and get on that sofa because you're not getting in the bed with me because you want to talk about another woman. I mean, I always look at it like this. You never sit there with your employees talking about another person because you're saying that you don't want this person in your job. And basically, what this guy did was use the performance evaluation on 9/11 to create another performance evaluation on October 24th to lead to my termination. He basically was setting me up to get me out of the job because he wanted to have his smooth world, basically accused me of sleeping at the desk, even though you can't sleep standing up, because he wanted to have his smooth world where he didn't have to deal with a black man being at his front desk, didn't have to deal with a black man in a power position once again. That's another lesson I learned, again, that these white racists are extremely insecure about black men being in positions of any sort of power. They really, again, are uncomfortable with a black person being in a position of power where they can have say over anything. And that's the reason why this guy, again, possibly had an issue with me. Again, didn't want to see a black person in a position of power where they could actually, again, say yes or no or have control over anything, because for several weekends in the summer, I did have control over the opening and closing of the library. And as I had control over that opening and closing, I did do things that this black mammy would not do. Now, one time that I was doing overtime at the library to close the library, I noticed she did something that was extremely dangerous. I mean, once we had closed up, she then let some white guys in to basically look around the library after we had closed. And I said that was extremely dangerous because I know how the stick-up kids operate. Yeah, they want to come in. The stick-up kid will come in and rob you and possibly leave you dead. And that's where I wound up saying that if I'm in charge, I'm going to set boundaries. And as I set boundaries, things were changing at that library. People understood that when I was at the desk, again, the library closes as related to checking in and checking out at 4:45, and usually that library was empty by about 5:50 or so because people knew that there were going to be boundaries. They knew that there was a line in the sand, and people's behavior changed. And as people's behavior changed, they knew that they had to come in at a certain time. I mean, this is what I learned from, again, doing business. Again, doing business, you have to set boundaries in order to be effective at competing. And another thing that I did when I was at City College was teach a lot of the students there about competition, because a lot of the CUNY students, sadly, they had come in with a sense of entitlement, and they don't know that college is competitive. Now, the college I went to, Monroe College, they taught me about being competitive, and in order to be effective at any school, you have to have a competitive mindset. You have to understand competition. This is something many employers don't understand, that you have to, again, be competitive as related to things. And as I was working that desk, again, students were learning about how to compete. They were learning that they needed to be there at a certain time in order to get reserve books. You needed to be there in order to be in the library at a certain time. Again, competition is a mindset that you have to learn, and people were learning that mindset because I was setting boundaries and creating order. But sadly, again, when it came to that library, it just got very frustrating again, dealing with, again, an inept leader who was too cowardly to engage the students, engage the patrons, engage as related to leadership, and couldn't engage, again, and then hid in his office. How do you become the head of a department if you're hiding in your office? Critical question I have to ask, but I know the answer to that question because all you do is have to be white. And if you're white, you can basically, again, get jobs and be in jobs for years, and no one will hold you accountable. But the lesson that I learned, in addition to the ones I've discussed previously, is that you have to, again, if you're a boss, again, everything starts and stops with you, and you have to set the tone, you have to set the standards, you have to create the order as related to a business, and you don't delegate things like making people pseudo-managers. If I make someone a manager, I'm going to pay them the manager salary, and I'm going to give them the responsibilities. That's one thing I'm going to do. The other thing is I'm going to trust my workers to talk to them directly, and I'm going to talk to them directly because that's respect for them, and I'm not going to sit there and talk about another person or hiring another person in front of them. I mean, if I have an issue with a worker, I take it up with them in private. I take it up with them in private as related to things. I take it up as a leader. Again, when you are a good leader, you basically, again, you are upfront and you are going to deal with things quickly. That's another thing I learned, is you deal with things quickly. And red flags for jobs is people being hesitant, people being doubtful. You don't want to be doubtful and hesitant with your employees. No, you want to be fully engaged. Now, this is one of the things that would get me upset, is that people would tell me, oh, we want an enthusiastic worker, but you don't show any enthusiasm during the interview. You show no effort whatsoever during the interview. You don't even try to ask critical questions. When I come into a talk discussion with a comic artist, like what I did for John Haynes at Death's Door, I had a long conversation with Antonio Balderi, had lots of other conversations with other artists as related to Prince and stuff. Again, I come to people with energy and enthusiasm, and I come to them eager to do business, but I also again let them know up front what things are going to be. I mean, I learned a lot of lessons from these jobs about leadership. I learned a lot of lessons about what not to do from the managers that I had been under. And I learned that, again, there are lessons to learn about treating people, because if you want to bring out the best in your people, if you want to bring out the very best in your people, one of the things you have to do is show that you basically are eager to have them work for you. I mean, just like a girl you're going out on a date with, you're going to deal with the person who responds to you quickly. So you're going to try to get back to them as fast as you can. You're going to make your offer as fast as you can. And you're not going to hesitate at all as related to getting them started. You want to get them started as soon as possible. And you're going to look to teach them everything that they know. I mean, you're not going to sit there and again doubt someone and say, oh, they're going to be taken advantage of. No, I don't want to bring someone into my company who I don't really trust their abilities or trust their ability to do their job. No, if I bring someone on as related to business, I trust their ability all the way. And if they don't know anything, I want them to be able to come to me and ask me what they want. Now, I remember doing John Haynes at Death's Door. It was a page that Antonio Balderi was having a problem with, and I got back to him quickly, and we worked it out. Again, I want to be there for my employees or the freelancers I work with. Again, I try to keep the communication open, try to keep things right, and that's what I would want to do on one of these jobs. And I never got that chance to be able to work at one of these jobs the way I should be working. Now, there was one job that I got, the seasonal job at Burlington Coat Factory. That was a good job for me because that was a job where I saw good leadership. That was the one time I saw good leadership. This guy, Darnell, was fantastic as related to supervision. Basically, let us go and take care of business as related to receiving those packages. We got the stuff out on the shelf, and we're done by 12 o'clock basically every day because he let us know what he wanted from minute one, let us know what the direction was for things. That's what leadership was. So leadership is out there, and again, I basically learned lessons from seeing, again, bad leaders, and I learned lessons from seeing good leaders like I saw at Burlington Coat Factory. I mean, that was a seasonal job that I had gotten a while one time, and basically I wish I could have kept that job, but sadly they had a vaccine mandate that basically kept me from keeping that job. It was only like maybe 1 or 2 days a week. It wasn't full time, but the whole thing is that they had more professionalism at Burlington than they did at City College or the law firm or Strive, and that was sad to me that this guy knew how to run a receiving department and had it running right. I mean, stuff was coming in, stuff was coming out. Everybody knew their roles. Stuff was moving and flowing. Again, it was about taking care of business, and again, the lessons that I learned as someone who was out here and again runs his own business is I learned that you have to treat people right when you are in business. You have to treat your people right, and you have to be honest and upfront with your people. You have to be honest and upfront with your people as related to your business. And in order for them to do your work, you have to be straight with them. You have to have good communication. You have to have professionalism and understand that you just can't treat people like crap. You can't come in and again be lackadaisical as related to leadership, because if you're lackadaisical as related to leadership, or you're out here with a huge ego thinking it's all about you, The only thing that's going to happen is that your business is going to go into a dysfunctional state that eventually will lead to its decline, and you'll go from being in business to out of business just like that. Now, if you want to learn more about how to navigate a successful career, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping in the Workplace, on Amazon.com. And in that book, I tell you to identify the workplace male and female predators on the job and a strategy for avoiding these individuals to keep them from derailing your job or your career. And if you want to check out many of the books on the SJS Direct imprint that I've produced over the years, because I have written over 80 books, you can pick up many of my fiction books like the ISIS series, the Esteem series, the John Haynes series, the Spinsterella books, and my vampire novel Eternal Night, and my black business novel Recipe for Success, and my black sorority novel The Thetas. You can find those books on Amazon.com, along with my men's issues books like Stop Simping in the Workplace, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, and books like The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis, and Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. You can find all those books on Amazon.com, and you can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos talking about the world of work, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available for the first time in paperback. Stop Simping in the Workplace. Men, learn what you need to know in order to protect your job from workplace predators with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available in paperback at online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Illuminati. The man who rules the world takes on the head of the global elite in this all-new action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' Illuminati in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.